One of the really important features that WordPress has in posts that's a little bit different traditionally than pages, in a way that we could make our single.php file a little bit different than our singular one, is by adding in comments. So comments.php is part of the template hierarchy. It's the default name for the template that houses all of the comment code. And it's not its own template. It's a template include. So just like the header and the footer, there's a custom function that we could use called comments template. And this is going to load up our comments into the page. So we'll add this in. And again, this is just going to, one, make our comments better and actually work on our site, which we want to work, and it will help distinguish our single from our singular. Now, I will point out, if you want comments on pages, then you would have to duplicate this, or you might want to go back and add it to the single.php or singular.php, or later when we look at our page.php, you may need to duplicate some of this. So let's talk about how we could get this comments.php file and how we could set it up to load properly. So the first thing to mention is, where do we get our comments.php file? And this is one place where I will tell you, even after years of doing this and coding a lot of stuff from scratch, I would suggest copying and pasting a comments.php file from another theme into yours. So what I've done is I've copied mine from, you guessed it, underscore, but sometimes you could just go to 2015 or 17 or 18, whichever one you want, and grab the actual comments.php file. You may need to tweak some CSS, you may need to tweak a teeny bit of HTML, but in general, not too much is going to change, and you could probably just use somebody else's and drag and drop it in. So let me show you what that looks like and why we're going to do it that way. So we'll name it comments.php. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the completed code from the download, and I suggest you do the same, and we'll save it. So let's just run through this briefly, talk about what's going on, although a lot of this is beyond our understanding at this point. So first thing, it's saying if there's a password required, stop, don't display the comments. If there are, we can see here's where our comment area starts, and if there are comments, it's getting a title. It's putting together some sort of title like, oh, here's a thought on your article. We can see the H2 ends. It's saying get the page count, put in a navigation if there should be a navigation. We've got some newer comments, older comments, so that looks like it's pagination stuff. And then we come down to our list of comments. Without really knowing what this is doing, we could see, oh, this is styling it as an ordered list versus an unordered list. Again, getting some more comment navigation here. And then if comments are not open, it's displaying a message that says comments are closed. Okay, so now that we've got this comments.php file, what we need to figure out is, how do we get this added into our theme? So we have our single.php, and what we need to look at is, how are we going to pull this in? So let's take a look at that now. What we're going to do is come into our single.php and realize, oh yeah, of course, we're not probably going to add our loop in here. We're probably going, or our comments in here, we're probably going to add it inside this content here. So let's come into content.php, and where should we put this? Let's see, we've got the title, we've got the content, probably somewhere down here, but what do you think? Before the article closes, after it, you could kind of decide which you think is best for your scenario. I'm just going to throw it inside the article, although I guess semantically a comment might not be part of that article, but it might be. So let's just go ahead and put it in after our entry content. Give yourself some more room. And it's really easy to include. So we simply say PHP comments template, and boom. So now if we come back into our site and we load up one of our posts, look at that. We've got our content area. And of course, we copied it from somewhere else, so we might need to restyle it, but it should be pretty good and working and looking not too bad. And of course, we're on our single.php. Okay, so that's great. But one problem is, what happens if we come into a post and we turn off commenting? So we go to our discussion. You can see the comments there too. And we say allow comments, turn off. Now let's view the post. Comments are closed. Cool. So that worked as we would expect. But let's say that we didn't want any comments to display at all. One more piece of conditional tag that could be helpful to add is we could check before we even display the comments to make sure that comments are even open. So if comments open, and if, there we go. So that's just a little bit of extra conditional tags that will help if someone's viewing it and it's not open, to make sure that it is open. Otherwise, you're not going to display the comments at all. So if we were to come back now, we could see that they were open, but they're closed now for adding any future one. But if they were not open at all to begin with, then you wouldn't display any of them. I'm sorry, that's not correct. It's not comments open. This means nothing in PHP. It either needs to have this in front of it or a function. It is a function. So if we say if comments open, now if comments are closed, it won't display them at all. So that you may decide that that conditional tag is enough, that you want to display the comments but not let anybody post anymore. Or you may want to decide at a high level, hey, don't show them at all. So I will leave that up to you. Again, in the comments.php, it has an if statement that says, hey, if the comments are not open, then display comments closed and don't display the form. Or you can, at a higher level, let's come back into our single.php or content. You could say, hey, don't display them at all if it's closed. So up to you to pick there, but giving you some flexibility. And again, this is template tags and some conditional tags a bit beyond where we're at right now. But we've got our pages up and running pretty solid now for displaying single blog posts. Now we could turn our attention back to post formats. So catch up to this point, grab the comments.php file from the download and just copy it over, read through it, get an idea. But really coding that thing out from scratch does not really happen that often. It is possible, but most of the time, copying and pasting one and editing some styles here and there is going to give you what you need, and make sure you don't leave out anything important. So once you get that working, then hop over into the other site that you're building on your own, add the same functionality, play around with it, make sure that you could test comments, that they're working, etc., etc. Maybe take some extra time to style them exactly how you want. Maybe you want to tweak things, move it around, and you could do that. And then we will come back and look at kind of the last, start wrapping up with looking at how to display posts, and we'll talk about post formats.